Andrew, this is Eileen, and this is Pat. And we just did a big relaunch of the game and relabeled it Marvel Heroes 2015. Brought a bunch of new content like raids and the mega system and all that stuff. And so this presentation is kind of going over that. And then there's some Q&A at the end. Maybe some free stuff, maybe? Yeah, there you go. So projector holders. Woo!
Yeah, why?
So this is the Marvel Heroes 2015 trailer that we put out a month ago. And
for our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, for our 1 year anniversary.
1 year.
Enter my lair. I will welcome the entertainment. An inferno awaits you.
My glory.
Oh yeah.
Always appreciate it. Crank up the heat.
All shall fall.
Okay, so when we launched our game about a year ago, we started off with about 20 characters, and we now have 34, and we plan on shipping until we have 40 this year. So we've been making about a hero a month. So going backwards, we launched Silver Surfer with our 1 year anniversary, and before that was Psylocke and Invisible Woman. Taskmaster was our April Fools. He's our first villain, and Doctor Strange.
So we've also added a ton of new content, like the X Defense, which is that wave horde mode kind of battle. We have 5 people trying to save Xavier's mansion. We have the cosmic terminals, and just terminals in general that are just basically raid or boss rushes, I guess you'd say. The Holosim is the 2-person mode. It's similar to X Defense, and it's kind of wave based. The one-shots are the tiny story content that's separate from the main story. And then we just launched raids last month, and that was kind of a big deal. It's kind of geared toward our end user. It's really hard. You have to be level 60 to enter. Anybody tried the raids yet?
No.
Yeah, a couple? No?
I just finished downloading the whole day.
So yeah, so this is our kind of making of a hero trailer, kind of behind the scenes on how we work and the different process it takes to...
In Marvel Heroes, you are playing as the Marvel Heroes, so you're not playing as a knockoff. You are the big guys, so you're Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man.
The best thing about this game is that you get to play as your favorite Marvel characters. You get to design them in the way you want them. You have them dressed the way you want them dressed. You have them doing what you want them to do.
One of the most important aspects of designing anything in Marvel Heroes is making sure that we're true to the Marvel universe.
So when I'm searching for reference, personally, I will look at the comic books first. That's where the history's at. That's where I get all my ideas.
The process of getting a hero into the game spans several departments.
So it all starts with a brainstorming meeting. The entire team is brought into a room and they're discussing their thoughts of how a certain character should play and what kind of powers that character should have.
From the brainstorming session, the work gets split off into 2 different departments. The art team figures out how to make the characters look as iconic as we would expect. And the design team comes up with what the powers are going to be.
From our brainstorming meeting, designers are are then able to come up with a set of powers.
The designers will take those powers and put them in the game and get them working as close as they can. Then they send it down the pipeline.
Some of the challenges we have, especially when we're looking at the look, is what is the look of these characters? And they've been portrayed in so many ways throughout the years.
There are literally thousands of images in the Marvel comics. We like to use those as our references.
We digitally sculpt each hero in ZBrush. Every hero's costume is actually a separate digital model. So we try to match the source material as much as we possibly can. In most of the cases, we can hit it pretty dead on in terms of how it looks.
On average, it takes us about 4 days to make a model. Sometimes they can take as long as a week or even 2 weeks.
We end up with these super high resolution grayscale 3D models that we then paint and make a texture map, a normal map, and a specular map. Then we build the materials in Unreal so that the different surfaces react to light as you'd expect. After that, we bring the hero into Maya for rigging and animation setup.
Rigging is required to make our characters behave naturally.
They put constraints on the body so the animators can move them in believable poses.
The things you wouldn't really think of are like capes. So for Thor, we'll add Bonestay's cape.
So pretty much, if it moves, it probably needs a skeletal system.
Once a model is rigged, it goes to the animation department. They give it run cycles, emotes, and power animations. Basically every move the hero makes in the game.
So once the animations are done, then the effects artist will take that into Unreal, and then they will add the particles and the models and mesh effects, materials, everything to finish off the power. So if it's Thor's hammer, we want to support that movement of the spinning and then have the throw and then the electricity of the hammer and everything kind of support it.
And then finally, they will go to the audio group who give all the same sound effects. So Spider-Man's web whip sounds like Spider-Man's web to kind of put the icing on the cake to make it a full power.
One of the things that I'm most proud of in Marvel Heroes is how differently every single hero plays from each other.
There are dozens of characters in the game. Each one gets a lot of attention, a lot of detail to make sure that they're very unique. A unique play style, unique looks, unique costumes. It's a very different experience, a very different game with each of the different characters you can play as.
So in the comic books, you would find that Hulk and Thing look like they would have similar powers in a video game.
We've decided that our version of the Thing has a lot of team-oriented skills. The way that he plays ends up being very different than Hulk, who's all about DPS and throwing things and smashing.
And really want to make sure that we find a balanced experience for everybody. So playing as Iron Man, even at level 1, we want to make you feel powerful. We want to make sure that he has all the repulsor beams and blasts that you come to expect from the character. And then as you progress him up and get him stronger, he'll have different abilities that you would find in the movies or the TV shows or the comic books that are that much more powerful than what you had to begin with.
When you put a point into the power trees with Marvel Heroes, you unlock new abilities, and a lot of times it can do things that you have not had the ability to do in the game. It really makes you feel more like the character. Every single character has kind of signature powers that are very unique that nobody else can do. And so even something as simple as Hulk getting mad, nobody else gets mad like the Hulk, and so that in of itself makes sure that the characters play differently from each other.
And you're not restricted to just one hero throughout your whole play experience. You're able to collect multiple heroes and play as each one of them as you go through the game.
You can unlock new characters in the game, first and foremost through drops by defeating different bosses.
As long as we keep going, I think we'll be adding as many characters as possible.
It actually takes a lot of people a lot of time to create these characters and to allow that quality to show through. So it's a huge effort to make any character in our game.
When we're designing a power and we consider it to be done, it isn't really done, and it won't be done for a while. We listen to the community, we get feedback about what we're doing, and we try and incorporate that all into game balance as we make them all as best they can possibly be.
Everyone who reads the comics has a different feel about what that character should be doing or what that character should look like. And now you can take that character and make it exactly the way you want it.
So that dev diary came out from before we actually launched. So there are some things in there that are kind of outdated. The process has
hero
I'm
token?
sorry?
Is your hero token?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I want my hero token.
We
don't speak about those.
But the process of making a hero hasn't really changed very much from that video. So let's use Mr. Fantastic as an example, since he's coming out in less than a week. He comes out July 10th. And that's the last hero that we have most recently worked on. So it starts back in paper design when we say, hey, what hero are we doing next? What do they do in the comics? What do we want them to do in our game? So a lot of times these will match up, but then we also say, okay, well, for game balance, what other types of powers does he need that he might not necessarily actually do in the comics?
Oh.
So given that Mr. Fantastic has lots of stretchiness, we concepted out a few different ideas of what he might do with his body, some of which made it into the game and some of which didn't really work out, and we went from there. Then we have to have different models for him. So because his body gets so distorted, we actually have to have several models to account for that. So if you just took a normal model and you just stretched it to make whatever shape you wanted, it would look pretty janky. It would have kind of weird edges, the texture would be wrong. So we actually have to make a couple models and rigs. So this is his normal mode, and then he also has he has a model where he's this giant ball. So if you took that and just deformed it into a ball, it would look it would really kind of awful. So we actually have him modeled and rigged as a bouncy ball so that he can even do the little squishing when he bounces, so it looks a little bit more realistic. But it did mean that he was a lot more work than the previous characters that we've done. So the animation, a lot of times what happens is we get the animations and we put them into the powers. And for Mr. Fantastic, since the animation and rigging was working concurrently, we actually had some animations that looked really weird because we didn't have the new model to replace it yet. So there were some things where his fists get really big, and so when you look at the normal model, he looks like he's doing this. And it looks really super weird. But then you get the real model and then he just got these giant fists. So now we do powers implementation after the animation, or at the same time actually, and this is mostly, we've gotten our tools to the point where this is mostly done by designers like myself and Nikolai and Michael Mayhem, but we also...
Over 9,000.
And we also, but generally we still have things that we need some help from engineers from. So for example, Mr. Fantastic had a bit of tech, to say the least, right? I mean, when I first started working at Gazillion, we actually thought that we would never be able to do Mr. Fantastic because of all the different tech and art that would be involved with him. And I was really sad because I thought it would be really sad to not have all of the Fantastic Four, but a year and a half later, we are going to have all of them, which is super exciting.
With every new character, we try to just do one little feature. So over time, we build this feature up, and then we have it available for other heroes or villains down the road that we need to. And it works out that way really well. So we can keep improving the technologies little by little as we go through more and more advanced characters.
Like Ghost Rider with the bike.
Yeah.
So after we get the animations and we hook them up with the powers that we've made and everything's in a good shape, we test to make sure the timing is how we want it, it looks like it plays the way we want it to, and once we've got all that done, then we send it to the visual effects and sound effects because they need the timing to be locked down so that they don't have to redo their work.
So raids. So for the year anniversary, we launched raids, and there was a lot of work that went into raids. All of the the new environment, bosses, just the tech of raids, right? All the bosses in the raids have this enraged mechanic, and each boss and each encounter has its own mechanic of how you finish the fight. So I did a lot of work on that specifically. So this is just a fire giant shaman. He's one of the just trash mobs you find he might be elite and now, but he's on the ramp and in other places, and he's just a normal mob, doesn't have any special AI, he kind of just wants to kill you. And then we have these encounters, so there's 5 encounters, there's 5 different bosses, and the last being Surtur. And so for some of the mechanics, like this one is the Monolith fight, and Monolith has this big shield around it, it's just a big tower, that's all he is, it's just a tower. But you're supposed to protect Volstagg and Fandral while they heal these little obelisks. And if you heal the obelisks, they will then damage the shield, and they can damage the shield, and you can't. So a lot of work went into this fight of being able for the AIs to communicate with each other from such a vast distance, and then having the healers do their own thing. And so it's just a lot of specific work, but like Pat said, all this tech we make now for this raid we can use in the next raid or in any other future content. So it's really good. And so this is Surtur. He's the final. Has anybody fought Surtur yet? Yeah, he's really hard. He's really hard. So he is the biggest enemy in the game by far. Just to give you a sense of scale, like those are.
That's us.
That's us, and that's him. And he has a couple different mechanics. And I'm not going to spoil how to beat him, but he's really hard. You have to be really geared up, and you have to be level 60, like I said before. But it's a fun fight. And so after you beat Surtur, this is the motion comic that plays.
I'll say one thing before we show it. The thing about this new raid is that it really enforces teamwork. All the major bosses in this raid, you have to have your team split up, and people have different roles that they have to fulfill. And it doesn't matter if you're a tank or a DPS, you have a valid role in this. Whereas our previous villains that you'd find throughout the Marvel Heroes game, you know, they're a little bit not as sophisticated. Everybody gets to just beat up on them. So this really requires a lot of teamwork. Starts enforcing, you know, communication skills and organization skills with whoever you're partying with. 8 people? 10 people. 10 people for a raid like this.
I think there's going to be green mode and red mode, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to introduce an easier mode.
For people like me who don't have super awesome gear, so that we can go ahead and play it. So before we, nope, I guess we're going to go ahead. Spoiler.
Champions of Asgard and Midgard, victory is ours.
Now, aren't you glad you didn't kill me? Oh, bother. Now, Father.
Silence! I cannot believe that even Loki would have the gall to threaten the